Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Hi, this is Monica Copeland. I'm the MDI Network Director at Inclusiv. Welcome. We are happy to have you all together today for a new session. It's a three-part series, and this is part 2 on our Advancing Women of Color Leaders in the Credit Union Movement. We're so excited to have you all here. I'm just going to do a high-level agenda just to kind of kick off and share about how we're going to frame today's session. And then we're going to dive in for a really robust conversation with 4 credit union leaders. So today's agenda, we'll start with opening remarks from Deborah Bowroy. She's a consultant at Inclusiv, who's been working with us for many years. Then I'll just do a brief introduction of the speakers. Their full bios were shared in advance, but we just want to do a quick, just let you know who they are and where they're from. Then we'll do a facilitated panel discussion followed by the Q&A. So you are, as you're listening and you're hearing things, you are welcome to type in the chat. And then we'll try to take the questions at the end with some wrap up. But I'm going to turn it over to Deborah. Deborah, if you want to say your opening remarks.
Sure. Thank you so much, Monica. And it's a real pleasure to be here this afternoon among such stellar and impressive women. As Monica said, is that this is the second webinar of our 3-part series on advancing women leaders of color in the credit union movement. The series is made possible by the support of Goldman Sachs, and we're grateful for their strategic partnership in helping to shine the light on extraordinary women and to prioritize the advancement of women of color in leadership positions in the credit union. Recently, I read a report by CUNA, the Credit Union National Association, which released this report that found that 51% of US credit union CEOs and 33% of board members are women, compared to only 3% at mainstream banks. However, the report also noted that as asset size increases, female representation at the CEO level decreases for credit unions. While we are all very encouraged by this report and its findings, we all know the industry has still much more work to be done in order to have equal representation of women of color leaders across credit unions of all asset size. Women belong in all places where decisions are being made. And I'm sure you've all heard this pronouncement on gender equality from the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. But I want to add to her quote by saying, women of color belong in all places where decisions are being made. Our goal with today's webinar series is to recognize the achievements of women of color and facilitate a discussion on topics that are important to the advancement of women leaders in the credit union. Today, we have 4 inspiring women who are on the battlefield, our theme for today's discussion. And they are Joumana, Mcdad, Denise, Michaux, Barbara Mojica, and Hazelmae Overturf. We welcome you all here and are so excited to hear you. I'm sorry, if you could mute.
Okay. Eso me meto. Para tenerlo, esto es más que todo para guardarlo y.
Should I continue, Monica?
Yes.
I think for the next 90 minutes, these incredible and insightful women will share how they're going to overcome professional challenges, their strategies for effectuating change and transformation, and ways they have been able to advance their organizations. Before I bring on Monica Copeland, MDI Network Director, who's a dynamo from Inclusiv in her own right, she's going to welcome our speakers a few housekeeping items. You will be muted throughout the discussion. If you want to ask a question or make a comment, please write it in the chat. And while the discussion is going on and Monica is facilitating, I will be closely watching the chat. At the end of the session, there will be 15 minutes of an answer period. And at that time, Monica and I will make sure that your questions are responded to. So now I turn to my colleague, Monica Copeland, to lead this afternoon's discussion. Monica?
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you again for that opening remarks. What I'll do is I'm going to just share my screen for the speakers today. So as you can see, the lineup we have, again, as Deborah mentioned, we have 4 dynamic women who are here. They're in their mid-stage career or even longer. They've been at it for a while. And we wanted to share, about for them to have a chance to share about themselves as well as their experience working with the credit union movement. So we first have Joumana Mcdad. She's the Executive Vice President and Chief Strategy and Information Officer at One Detroit Credit Union. We also have Denise Michaux, President and CEO of Concord Federal Credit Union. Barbara Mojica, Executive Director of the National Association of Latino Credit Unions and Professionals, also known as NLCUP. And Hazelmae Overturf, who's the Program Director at Kauai Federal Credit Union. So I want to just welcome everybody. I will stop sharing so we can see your faces. But I'm going to begin with a question just to warm us up a little bit. And I'll start in a pointed way. Welcome. Barbara, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you hear about credit unions and join the credit union movement? So what spurred you to start working in credit unions?
Hi, everyone. I was working for the dark side when I was 19 years of age. I started as a teller and quickly realized that it was not the environment that I wanted to participate in. And then I got a job teaching, which led me to having a membership at Aacc here in North Carolina. And how quickly and how helpful they were making me realize, okay, maybe I was just in the wrong side. So I started investigating more about credit unions and applied to Coastal Credit Union here in North Carolina. It took them like 4 months to give me an interview. And then I ended up at Coastal. So I worked for them for about 4 years doing community engagement work. And then I moved over to Inclusiv for a year and now I'm here. So I have a very short career in the credit union industry, but I'm very passionate about the credit union industry.
Thank you, Barbara. And Denise, do you want to take that one? How did you hear about credit unions? What brought you to the movement?
Excuse me. Well, I've always known about credit unions since I was a small child. My mom was a longtime city worker, so she had an account at Municipal Credit Union, and that was her bank for many, many years. So I always knew of credit unions. I started my career as an internal auditor. At the time, it was called Chase Manhattan Bank, and now it's called JP Morgan Chase. And I've always worked at very large financial institutions here in the New York City area. And I got along fine there. As those big organizations change, there's always reorganizations and layoffs or rifts, what they call reduction in force, things like that. And I found myself at a smaller private bank located in Manhattan, and that was fine too. And that's where I basically retired from because they offered packages, and I took one of those packages. And right in front of me at my church, Concord Baptist Church, we have a credit union, and it's been in existence since the 1950s. It's a small credit union, and I was just in the right place at the right time. They needed someone to lead it, and I was available. And I wanted to provide some service to my church, and that's how I found myself here. And I'm very happy to be here.
Thanks, Denise. Hazelmae, tell us about your journey to credit unions.
Well, thank you so much, Monica. Aloha, everyone. I am Hazelmae Overturf, and I am currently at Kauai Federal Credit Union, where I'm about to hit my 3-month mark at that organization. Thank you. But I was in credit unions for almost the last 13 years and all of that experience at a wonderful credit union in the Pacific Northwest, BECU. And I'm like, we are 3 for 3 for former bankers on this panel so far. We'll see what Joumana has in store for us when she does her intro, but former banker all throughout undergrad, started as a teller, worked through that. After undergrad, I took a break and taught English in Korea for a year. And that was 2008, 2009, which we are all familiar with the first Great Recession that occurred in this country, well, not in this country, but at that time. And I found myself returning home, looking for any in knowing that I had banking in my background, I went to a job fair to go check out all the different banks that were there and found a credit union, the ECU. And the first job that were available at that time was a contact center consultant. So even though they didn't really necessarily at that time need tellers, I had some banking knowledge and worked my way through my career from that, our branches, did my dream job for a hot minute in HR, learning and development, and ended my career at BECU with a lens on employee experience and working our hybrid strategy. And at Kauai Federal, I get the extreme honor of working on wonderful community development and social impact programs, right now with our current focus on Corona rental and utilities assistance. So wonderful program. I'll probably speak to that a little bit later, but happy to be here. I'm already feeling inspired, and I hope we leave that feeling with all of you by the time we're done.
Thank you, Hazelmae. Joumana, last but not least on that one, do you have, tell us about your journey to credit union?
So Hazelmae, it is 4 for 4. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joumana Mcdad. I am in the Metro Detroit area. I work for One Detroit Credit Union. And I don't know if you can tell, but I'm actually Canadian. I've got a little Canadian accent maybe. So I got married, I moved to Michigan, and I used to work at a bank for 10 years, believe it or not. And that was actually in Canada. So when I moved to Michigan, I started reading about credit unions. I had no clue what credit unions were. We didn't have a lot of credit unions in Canada. And the one thing that I will say that I loved about credit union and the factor, you know, in terms of why I decided to move to a credit union, because we're community based. We focus on the community, you know, whereas the big banks, all you're reading about is their profit and their losses. And, you know, yeah, maybe they do some things, you know, in terms of charity, but it's definitely not a credit union. I have dabbled in all the areas of a credit union. I started off as a teller, as an assistant manager, branch manager, vice president, and now I am the executive vice president at One Detroit Credit Union, overseeing all the areas. And I couldn't do what I do without my amazing team. So,
thank you. All right, so now that everybody's warmed up, just want to place where you are now, like kind of ground for folks who don't know you and your work in your credit union, where you are now, if you're at a credit union or the organization that you're at, Barbara. So I'm going to start with Barbara. Could you tell us about your current place where you're working and what your day-to-day is kind of like, what your role is?
So I literally just started with NLCUP as their new executive director. I started August 29th. So my day-to-day has been a little bit chaotic right now because I'm getting adjusted to the leadership role. And NLCUP is really the place to empower Latinos. And my main focus is to make sure that Latinx folks have visibility inside the credit union and beyond. So I'm working on, you know, growing NLCUP right now. That's my focus.
Denise, do you want to take that one? Tell us a little bit about Concord and who you serve, maybe assets, things to help.
Concord, as I mentioned earlier, it's affiliated with Concord Baptist Church, so it's faith-based. We have now $10 million in assets, so we're a small credit union, and we have a small staff. Right now, we have basically 2 employees, but we have some volunteers who help us, and we have some consultants who help us. As the president, I get involved in almost every aspect of the operation. And because of our small size, I have to be able to roll up my sleeves and do things that when there's no one else around or something, I've even manned the teller window. So it's just that type of organization because we're small. And we have over 600, between 600 and 700 members. Many of them are older people. Many of them, when they come to the credit union, it is to not only to do their transaction, but to socialize a little. And, you know, they'll ask us and we'll ask them about their family and how they're doing, any issues that they're having. It's much more, as someone said, community-based and personal based. We try to get to know
Es que estoy
our
tratando de
members personally.
programar la oferta, pero
We are working
Joumana me
on,
envió las instrucciones. Lo que pasa es que estoy en la tabla de las ofertas
that is
y tengo dudas,
Jessica, who's launching.
porque ella me dice, me sale una tablita de apertura, primer pago, último pago, próximo pago y vencimiento. Y me dice que ya está programado todo, pero cuando yo voy...
Sorry, I'm sorry about that. I think somebody had their thing unmuted, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to unmute Denise. Denise, can you unmute?
Good. And really, I was just going to wrap up my comments by saying we are preparing ourselves to grow and to reach out more to our community members and partnership with other community organizations, because our strategy right now is we feel we offer a really wonderful service and we want to make it available to more people in the community.
Great, thank you. Hazelmae, tell us about your credit union.
Yes, of course. So I'm new, so hopefully y'all won't report this back to my CEO if I don't do this well, but I'm really excited to join Kauai Federal Credit Union. We are a credit union out on the island of Kauai, which is one of the main islands in the Hawaiian Islands. And our main SEG group are our government employees originally. We were originally known as Kauai Government Employees Federal Credit Union, and recently rebranded to kind of showcase our want to kind of grow more, as Denise mentioned, into our community on the island of Kauai. And we are about between 150 and 175 million in assets. And the island of Kauai has about 70,000 people on it alone, but we have about 7,200 members that are part of our particular group, thanks to our original charter, but also our ability to have what we call lokahi, which in Hawaiian or olelo is unity. And it's our community partners and businesses that we can be part of our charter and kind of grow our membership in that fashion. So really about community unity itself. And so it's been an exciting time to join this organization. I mentioned I was at a pretty large organization before in the Pacific Northwest. So that kind of difference is really been fascinating for me to learn and overcome. But Kauai is really wonderful. We're small but mighty, but a lot of the work that we're doing and the work that I get to, again, just so humbly get to lead and work through into the future is our work around economic resiliency. And so that's something that we are really constantly thinking about how to be more innovative in that space, really looking at regenerative economies, especially for an island that is a little bit restrictive in the industries that we can kind of look at and pursue and some of the options we have there. But we are going to do it together and really excited about having this opportunity for myself to learn and grow in this space.
Thank you, Hazelmae. Joumana, can you tell us about One Detroit and your credit union?
Sure. So One Detroit is in the Metro Detroit area. We're 56 million in assets. We have 3 branches, 12,000 members, and we are a MDI and also a community development credit union. And our mission is to impact and change our members' lives. And really that's what we do. Our main focus is, let me say that we're pretty proactive when it comes to making any decisions or initiatives. We don't just put something out there. It's very focused on the community needs. We partner up with nonprofits within the city of Detroit. We actually will brainstorm the products and initiatives that we're looking to do prior to rolling them out. And because I think they're the main ones that really understand and know the community and the pain points of the community. So we're really focused on that. We serve the underserved and unbanked in our community. We don't turn anyone away for the most part. We allow them to open up accounts. We do second chance accounts as well. We have first time auto buyer auto loans that we do. So, that's our main focus of One Detroit Credit Union.
Thanks. And as a follow-up to that, The question would be about, you mentioned MDI, so Minority Depository Institutions, and you said that One Detroit is one of those MDIs. Can you tell us if there's been a difference between working at an MDI versus a non-MDI? Any observations from a race?
Yeah. You know, I think working at a bank for 10 years was really eye-opening because their initiatives were mainly one size fits all. You know, there wasn't really, you know, they didn't dig deep to understand, again, going back to the community needs, they didn't dig deep to understand that. So the initiative would just be a one size fits all. They didn't assess, you know, the environment or the geographic areas that they were in. You know, for us, really each individual has a story. You know, they have a story, and that's who we serve. We're serving these members and these individuals. We're very mission-based, and really our mission is what's driving the impact to the communities that we serve, obviously by providing affordable financial products and services to stimulate economic growth in those communities.
Thanks. Denise, do you want to also share from your perspective what the difference has been working at an MDI versus non-MDI institution?
We are, as Monica said, at MDI. Our membership is largely African-American. We are located in a traditionally African-American community of Bedford-Stuyvesant, but with gentrification, that's quickly changing. Our staff, the people who take care of the office, are largely either women or people of color. And I think that I would say the difference that I've seen, and I've worked in very large banks, is that there is a more sense of community. There is a sense of pride in what we're doing, and we want to help people we want to help people achieve the goals that they set for themselves. And we can personally see that that's done because our customer base, it's very person to person here. We're trying to move more into the digital world so that people can get the efficiency of digital transactions and so forth. But right now, a lot of people still like to come and we meet them person to person, and we do loans. And I wouldn't say that we do turn people down for loans when need be, but we also have the ability to adjust and make a loan product to fit the person's particular needs so that they can achieve the goal that they want, and yet we feel that we have a good loan on our books.
Great. So I'm going to turn to Barbara and Hazelmae. We noticed that in your bios that you've been involved in organizations such as NLCUP and the African American Credit Union Coalition. So I'll start with Barbara. Why are spaces like NLCUP and AACUC important for people of color and others?
I think it's important for safety. You know, I think it's the most important thing, being able to be in a safe space where you can communicate with people that look like you without feeling like you might lose your job for what you say, or, you know, creating tension between other co-workers. So I think that's what NLCUP and AACUC are trying to provide. It's that safe space, right? And it's not just people of color, you know, a lot of supporters of the Latinx community or the African American community, or supporters of the communities of color have been part of AACUC and NLCUP as well. So I think it's just providing a safe space to exist. For so long in history, especially in America, we haven't had those spaces. So I think these spaces are highly, highly important and very crucial to the movement of the credit union industry.
Absolutely, Barbara. I would 100% agree. And as you're describing the AACC, for those that may not know, the acronym is African American Credit Union Coalition. Obviously, well, maybe not obviously, I'm not African American, and I am very, very clear about my intentions when I work with this group, because I am an ally and I am an accomplice to exactly what Barbara mentioned about creating safe spaces and also amplification of these different groups that have been marginalized historically and been in systems that continue to perpetuate inequity. And I know that about myself. And in all honesty, during the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd, I was looking for a space to not only be an ally, but for myself to learn and to be supportive of what we all, I think, were cracked open to learn about during this time. And one of the things I will mention, there's not a place for where I identify as an Asian American Pacific Islander woman. And that's something that honestly, I'm hoping to change, talk about being on the battleground. I'm working with a group of wonderful people that similarly identify with the cultures that I mentioned, and Native Hawaiians. And we want to create that same space. And the hope is, as Barbara mentioned, is to continue to shift kind of the representation. I see the chat, wonderful question. Immediately what I thought of too, of that 51% of women CEOs out there at credit unions, how many of them are women of color? Is that, oh,
I think she froze for me. Did she freeze for you guys too? All right.
our
So
foundation or baseline to make continue, especially in regards to the AACC. Was I breaking up? Oh no. But yes, so thank you for that.
yeah, no, thank you,
Okay.
Hazelmae, for bringing that up. And then thank you also for flagging that you're organizing a group for Asian American and Native Hawaiians. So that's wonderful. And so folks can reach out to you if they're interested or want to know more. We have a question that I'm going to run by all of you because I think it's really pertinent to this session in particular. So the question on the table is, have you observed race or gender related issues still affecting, or rather, how has race or gender influenced your work experience with credit unions? In what other ways does race or gender come to mind? I'll start with Barbara, just to keep it alphabetical. So
Yeah. I don't have as much experience as everyone here in the workforce, but I think, oh, this is gonna make me emotional, because for me, my first bad experience, and when I really started to notice that I was a person of color and I didn't have equal opportunities in America, was when I can't talk. Can I take a minute?
yeah.
When I applied to college, and my dream school accepted me but said, we're not giving you tuition or scholarships because you're undocumented. And so that's when I started to realize that, you know, my life in America would never be easy as a person of color. In the credit union industry, though, I felt very supported by everyone, and that's why I'm passionate, and that's why I'm here. It's because I've met so many wonderful people who are part of helping me achieve the American dream. And so that's all I can say for right now.
Thank you, Barbara. No, thank you for sharing that. Denise, do you want to take a stab at it? How has race or gender affected you in the credit union work, or just in general? What comes to mind?
I'll add that race and gender has always affected my work experience, particularly when I was in larger organizations that are not, you know, MDI, so to speak. And I've worked at Citigroup, I've worked at Bank of New York, I've worked at, as I mentioned, JP Morgan Chase. It's always been an issue, and you learn how to deal with it. And you learn how far to go, right? And on the other hand, those type of organizations pay a lot, and you can get a good salary and get the things that you want in life. And you just have to decide, you know, how you're going to handle these things. Are you going to make it a big issue or not, or talk to people on a personal level? I've been subject to mansplaining. I've been spoken over when I'm speaking at a meeting. You know, other male people just start talking like I wasn't, like I didn't have the floor. I've had people with low expectations just upon meeting me. And I've had to be the spokesperson for the Black race. I mean, this was just, I had things I had to deal with. And at the end of the day, you're tired. At the end of the day, you can be stressed out, and you make a decision. Am I going to go back tomorrow? And do I have to go, you know, how far to fight against these things, or how to, you had to learn to reach your level where you can deal with it and still have a good life, basically.
Thank you, Denise. Hazelmae?
Yeah, complete agreement with all these beautiful women and their inspiring stories. And I think through a lot of the time that I spent in the last few years, especially really leaning into this work, is this internalized work that we have to do within ourselves and our own self-reflection through it. And there's a concept that I came across that that I want to share with you all today, and I won't get too academic or philosophical, but it's called internalized racism. And it's this concept where people of color, especially, or any marginalized folks, they begin to hear and be reinforced by these messages in the public that they internalize, and it almost becomes like they're like reinforcing these stereotypes, they're reinforcing these negative attributes to these things, and we start to hate ourselves. And it has taken me a long time to work through that and know that, one, I don't hate myself, I don't hate my race. I hate the situations that we're in, I hate the systems that we're dealing with. And the way that you can get out of that is being authentically you and amplifying yourself, finding those allies that will help sponsor and support you. And this all came to be because of, it's funny, I'm in Madison, Wisconsin, y'all. I'm not in Kauai, and I'm actually from Seattle, so I'm not there either. But I'm at the National Credit Union Foundation's DE program, and I'm helping to mentor. And I went through the program originally in 2019, and that was the first time that my eyes were open to the larger credit union industry. And I learned so many wonderful things in this program and continued to light my fire and be the catalyst for all of these different things that I'm doing. But as I learned more and got more involved outside of just my credit union and my state, my league, and I saw some of these things that I saw there, you don't see people of color at the GAC, the Government Affairs Conference, or there's small pockets of them. And it's just, it doesn't represent the populations of America and our communities we serve. And that's where, like, I feel personally like I had these internalized feelings. I was hiding some of my own want to pursue bigger and greater things because I wanted to shy away from that, but we can't in this work. And so I'm here to, like all of these wonderful people, to shift that. And that's what kind of keeps me really thoughtful about all of this.
Thank you, Hazelmae. It's so funny that you said that about GAC, because I felt the same thing. I was like, wow, there could be more. You know, I felt like there was an intentionality in terms of trying to put people of color on the panels and things like that. But my view of it was still like, wow, there could be more. Where are the folks? You know, like I just whereas some people are like, oh, it's so, you know, diverse and it's come a long way. And I was like, you know, looking around where I could count them, you know, people of color. But Joumana, can you please share any experiences you've had on that front in terms of race and gender?
Yeah, I think I can relate to everyone on this without getting too deep, you know, into it. But Barbara, especially, you know, what you had mentioned, I'm Lebanese, and believe it or not, over the years, I've just wanted to change my name, you know, because I felt, you know, prior to actually working, you know, at the credit union, when I was applying for jobs, I genuinely started feeling that because of my name, I was not getting any callbacks. I mean, I had a robust resume, and really, I feel like it took me knowing someone for them to actually get me an interview. And once I interviewed, I was in, you know, I was in the credit union space. The other thing too for me is, especially after 9/11, you know, I have a 15-year-old son, you know, we're Lebanese, you know, Arabic, right? And And even till this day, I mean, we gave him the name Daniel, you know, because we didn't want anyone to treat him different or look at him differently. But kind of going back to the question about, you know, how it's influenced the credit union space or the work. I would say for us, aside from creating a welcoming and inclusive workplace for our membership, we really want them to feel representative, not only with our staff, but also having services that really relate back to them as minorities. And then I think, you know, looking at gender and race through that specific lens, it does allow us to serve the underserved in our community, because it is the cornerstone of our mission. It really is. And I think for us, especially One Detroit, if we didn't have that perspective in mind, we wouldn't exist. We wouldn't be who we are today.
Thank you. So this next question is about I know in terms of leadership, mentorship, a lot in terms of the role of mentors for women. And so for Barbara, the question is, who or what inspired you to be a leader and why? Have you had any mentors?
Yeah, I've been very blessed in the credit union space to have a lot of mentors and people behind me. Some of those mentors are Emma Hayes. I know you guys probably know her. She's amazing. Chuck Purvis from Coastal Credit Union, Creighton Blackwell. But I think my source of inspiration has to be my mother. I know it's very cliche to say that, but my mother migrated here with her 4 kids and crossed that border to get us a better life. So I give her all the honor, and all the inspiration is because of my mom. So that is who has inspired me to be a leader, my mother.
Thank you, Barbara. This question I'm going to field to Hazelmae and Joumana, but I'll take Hazelmae first. This is about courses and resources and programs that have helped you become a leader. Have there been any particular resources, just wanting to share out to the credit union community, what's been helpful for you in terms of making connections? Did she freeze on me? I might have to ask you, Joumana, to take it.
Yeah, I can start.
I am literally at the Credit Union Development Educators. Is it better now?
Yes, it's good.
All right. Oh, good. Sorry, y'all. I'm in a student center at the DE program in Madison, Wisconsin. So I apologize for like internet connection instability. But that is literally, I mentioned a little bit earlier, that was the catalyst for me to be really open to the wider network, the onion, as we describe it in DE, of what is out there for the credit union movement. And I did that program in 2019, so about 3 years ago. And since then have had just wonderful opportunities to learn about all of these wonderful networks that are out there. There's the Global Women's Leadership Network, AACUC, NLCUP, and then also it's just finding those spaces where you feel like you can contribute and be supported, and to work through all those things are just some of those things that have been really wonderful. But I'm back at DE, and it's coming really full circle for me of why I continue to do this work. And I honestly will recommend that. And last but not least, I'm also in a lot of things with the Fineline Research Institute. That is one of our research arms of the credit union industry in the US. And they are fantastic in their program that they provide to young professionals. And so that's how I got the opportunity to go to GAC in 2020. I got to crash that particular conference and joined with 50 other young professionals and kind of stormed the Capitol, learning and getting to network and meet all sorts of people. And it just, again, continued to fire me up with this passion of the work that we can continue to do as credit unions. And then because of that, join I3, or Fineline Research Institute's I3 program, which is about ideas, implementation, and innovation. And so that's something that I'm in my last year of, and that is in combination of everything we're talking about. We also have to think about the future of credit unions and how are we going to not only continue to uplift our communities and the community and the really important purpose that we serve, but also how do we maintain solvency as a financial institution with fintechs coming out of the woodwork, all of these different things that are kind of disrupting just financial industry in general. So many, I'm sorry, I'm like, I could probably list all of these things. You can get into that can feed your soul and help you do the work to continue the prosperity of credit unions into the future.
One follow-up note of Hazelmae is DE, like
Yes.
explain it to people who may not have ever heard that term or what the program
Yeah,
is.
absolutely. So it is a program run by the National Credit Union Foundation, where it's been in place for about 25 years. And it's a program where you learn really about the purpose and the why credit unions exist. And you are given frameworks on how to address that work and how to even look at it more at a, I call it a macro scale of development issues that the entire world faces that you can pinpoint in your own communities at home and put action to. And so you go through this week-long immersive workshop and you get this designation, and you'll hear murmurs of best class ever, all of these different things, but it's truly the best class ever because you learn how to apply this community sense into the work that we do, which I think is what most people are looking for a frame in the work that we do. And it's a great place to start if you're interested in learning. Thanks, Debbie, for putting in the chat.
Thank you. Joumana, any programs or resources that have been particularly helpful in building your leadership skills?
I think Hazelmae took all of them. No, I do, obviously everything she had mentioned is great. I do love the global women's leadership. That one is amazing. I have met some phenomenal women that I look up to. They've become mentors to me, and I love that. One that I think she didn't mention was the CUNA Management School. So that's a 3-year program, and I went back in 2014, and it was a 2-week period each year. And you were actually in Madison, Wisconsin, and you lived in a dorm with about 80 other credit union professionals. And I remember at the time when my CEO asked me to go, I said, there's no way, I mean, I had a family at the time, my son was young. And you know what? I decided to go, and it was one of the most uncomfortable first 2 days of my life. If I tell you, I came back as a stronger leader, it was really one of the best networking events that anyone can do. Right now, they shortened it to 1 week each year because obviously people have families, and I think there's also a hybrid. They do some online things as well. But if you haven't taken advantage of it, please do, because right now I have amazing leaders, amazing friends from all over the state. Until this day, we still connect on every level, personal, professional. So that really is a great one.
Thank you. And I'm also monitoring the chat, so I see some additional resources. Thank you, Debbie, for putting in mentioning CULA. That was one that was mentioned during our last call when we had some representatives from Lynette Smith from CULA. So, but it's good for this group to hear that as well. And thank you, Joumana. Denise, so you touched on it briefly when you were mentioning some of the challenges, but have there been any additional barriers in your career as a woman of color? Have you had to work to strategically change your environment that you're in so that people are more accepting of you and what you bring to the table?
I wouldn't say that I had to strategically change the environment, but I was always cognizant of the fact, like I wanted to be seen, and and particularly in large organizations. In the smaller ones, it's not that issue, but in the larger organizations, you have to really let people see you and have a presence out there, because otherwise they'll just ignore you or pass you over when things come up. So it involved things like to make sure that you're seen, volunteering for things, personally introducing yourself to the decision makers or the leaders. I was lucky that in one of my jobs, I had a woman who I reported to, and she was a great mentor, and she actually taught me how to network. And it's getting over shyness, or women are taught to sort of wait till you're spoken to and to, step back and, and you have to get over that if you want to really move up and be considered for leadership roles. And then you have to get yourself out there and be seen. And there are ways, to be seen. And you have to do that. And we all know that the rewards don't always go to the most intelligent or the most knowledgeable. And it took me a long time to understand that. And, you'd be working hard and hitting all your targets like you're supposed to. And there's a whole another sphere that you're supposed to be operating in, not just doing your work and doing it well. And you have to be comfortable doing those, I'll call them the extracurricular things, so that people will know you. And when there are promotions and bonuses and special committees and stuff to work on, that they won't forget you, and they'll help you out and put your name forward so that you can have access to those things.
Thank you, Denise. Those are some really good nuggets. So Hazelmae, what's been a source of your personal commitment to working in the credit union movement?
Ooh, so personal commitment. I am not a mother, and I would think that, and I don't know if that's something that will ever happen for me, but I consider myself very motherly. That's a weird way to describe myself. And I'm ultimately a lifelong learner. And through that, I've had really great opportunities to teach and facilitate. And anyone who comes across either as a student of mine or under that umbrella, or even as a leader myself and people that I manage, they end up being family. And it's something that I think about all the time. These individual actions that I have in human connections and relationships, they will build ultimately to something bigger and greater. And so, although I don't have my own children, I think of everyone who comes in contact with me that fulfills that role, either like it's not just children, but it'll be like my aunties or uncles or cousins that I want to we want to create this really global family that we can support each other. I think about that constantly because that's the way that we all can leave. Well, I plan to leave my legacy currently without that. I mean, I have fur babies and they can't really share the credit union purpose and values, but it is something that I think about it's about people. And that's really what drives me.
Thank you. So Joumana, a question about for you would be, how do you stay grounded or take care of yourself? I mean, with juggling all of your work and your home, and what are you doing to sort of maintain balance?
I'm still working on it. It's tough, creating a work-life balance is not easy. Last year, it took my 14-year-old to tell me, Mom, you work too much, for me to really realize that I have to figure out a good way of balancing work and life. And, I also think back too, I have a team of 12 and they're looking up to me, and I have to make sure that I'm influencing them in terms of having the good work-life balance. I don't have the answer, to be honest. I really don't. I just know that you really have to balance your time. When it's dinner time, make sure it's dinner time. Put that phone away, because guess what? At the end of the day, your workload is going to be there when you get back. Trust me, I've gone on vacations for a week and I've come back and I'm like, oh, is my workload any easier? No, it's still there. So you really have to have that mindset, especially if you have kids. They grow up so fast. My son's 15. I remember when he was 3 years old and I was able to have my cell phone in my hand responding, to emails or to text messages from work. You have to balance it out. You have to know when it's work time and you have to know when it's family time.
Thank you for sharing that. Denise, a question for you is, what's one thing that makes you particularly proud of your career to date? You've worked at several different institutions. Anything in particular stand out for you?
Well, I am so proud that this credit union thought so much of me to make me the president and CEO. And I have been in the financial services industry for a really long time. And I'm so proud of myself. Like I say, that I have this position, and I want to leave my mark here. I want to nurture this credit union and see it grow. I want to nurture the employees that we have because they're amazing people, and I think they could really learn some skills that will help them in the future with whatever it is that they decide to do. So just being the president and CEO here, I am so proud. At my prior job, it was a small private bank, as I mentioned, and I was the head of the compliance department. And one day I went to the head of HR, and we were talking about my performance. It's like the performance review. And I told her, I said, I need to be chief of something. I want chief in my title. I don't want to be head of the department. I want to be chief. I need that title. She says, oh, I can change your title to chief. It's like, if you didn't ask, it would have never happened. And it's so great that it was a small organization, so it could happen. So here now, where I'm the CEO, I am so proud of that. And it's like I guess a word of advice to everyone that's listening, right? If you want a particular title, it may not even exist, but if you want a particular title, ask for it.
Thank you, Denise. Dropping bombs, important nuggets too. Barbara, what's on the horizon for you in your work with credit unions? Now you just started, but do you have any?
Yeah, so for NLCUP, I really want NLCUP and myself to be the voice for all credit unions to at least learn about undocumented lending and IT lending. That's a very important piece of my work. I think that's where I would, people keep asking me, what would your legacy be? And if I can think of something that I would want that to be my legacy, just advocating for my community. I know that if I would have learned about credit unions when I got declined for financial aid, maybe a credit union would have helped me achieve my school dream, you know? So I want to make sure that other kids never have to go through that, never have to face that. And then that people like my parents have an opportunity to have a bank that they can trust. And then ultimately, I want to be a Denise. I want to be a CEO of a credit union one day. So that was very inspiring. Thank you for the advice, Denise, because it's true. If you don't ask, you don't know. So I would love to run a credit union one day. So that's where I would head.
Wow, good. So, I just wanted to give folks a note about time. So we did build in this webinar to be an hour and a half, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to field one more question to the panel, but feel free to type in your questions if you have any particular questions for anybody in the chat, and we'll try to take it. So this is a time to sort of, go ahead and get to typing. And meanwhile, I'll field the final question to the panel from our side. What advice would you give to women of color in the industry? Any advice to the next generation of female leaders in this field? I'll start with Joumana.
Okay. I think a couple things here. Obviously, continue to get involved, take the lead. Continuous learning is critical. But I think the one thing that I've done over the past couple of years that has really worked for me is just compare yourself to you. I think that you can't be looking at what anyone else is doing. Focus on you. Where are you today? Who are you today? Where and who were you yesterday? Where and who are you going to be moving forward? And just work towards that. And you know what? If you have a manager or a leader that you report to, going back to what Denise said, you have to ask for it. You have to say what you want. You have to act it, and you have to show that that is exactly what you want. And if it doesn't happen, Don't be afraid to jump ship. It's time for you to move forward. It really is. So I think that's one, compare yourself to you. And then the other one is control what you can. This is something that my sister has really embedded in me, is just control what you can. You're going to have challenges, right? You're going to have issues. I'll tell you right now, you're going to have non-supporters in your life. Not everyone is going to be a supporter. Know who to surround yourself around, because that's truly how you're going to be successful. And don't let others dictate their perception of you and where they think your success lies. That's up to you.
Thanks, Joumana. Hazelmae, you ready to take this one?
That, Joumana, was mic drop, yes. But I made a face when you were saying like if you're not getting what you need and you share what you want, you may don't be afraid to leave. And I literally did that. And I'm a critical admirer of the credit union that I was at, which means that I love it, but I know that there is opportunity. And as I grew into my role, I knew I needed to continue to say things. I also have aspirations to be a CEO one day of a credit union. Barbara, you and me locked arms, let's go. But I got a little resistance once I shared that, and it's to no fault of the organization or the people that were there, but I think it was large and hard to turn a large ship on all of those different things. But I had to be brave and make that leap to an organization that was a lot more aligned to the work that I wanted to do and to gain the experiences that I would need to be able to be really intentional about this particular dream. And I will also add, I kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, to not limit yourself, because for many, many years, oh, I could be a chief learning officer, I could be a chief operations officer. That's where I will strive for a few years. It was only literally earlier this year where I realized I was limiting myself. And if I'm going to make true change and be at the level that I need to be to shift this work and what we're doing, I have to be at that level. And I'm probably, this is the fourth time I said it out loud. One day I will become a CEO of a credit union. I will not limit myself, and you all should do the same.
Wonderful, wonderful. Are there any last thoughts that Barbara or Denise want to share? Any final advice that you didn't get to share on this call?
I can just add a little bit to that. From my whole almost a month being at NLCUP, people have always talked to me, people of color have always talked to me about imposter syndrome and don't let it win, and this whole month I've had it for the first time. It's been very, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this, and then I quickly have to remind myself, a whole board selected me to be the executive director. I deserve this, and I'm good at this. I'm going to be good at this. So I would say, don't let imposter syndrome win ever, no matter where you are in your career. I think for me, I've let it win a couple of times, but not this time. So that's my advice. Don't let it win.
Denise?
I would just add, I always found it very helpful to network with other women, and it could just be lunch every now and then, or having a cup of coffee whenever. It's just, you need support. And many times other women know what you're going through, and it might be easier for you to connect with other women. And don't feel that, I don't know what the word is, that you're particularly, that something is wrong with you, or you're less of a worker or less of an employee because you want to talk to others about what's going on. We feel sometimes that men have it made, they know what to do all the time, and they don't. And they're just as lost as everybody else. And networking, I have found, with other women, and always, having access to other professional women, it really has made the difference. Really has made the difference.
Thank you. So we did get one question in the chat. It came in. It says, what's the best way to call out discrimination for what it is without looking like the problem? Does anybody have any thoughts on that one? It's calling out discrimination.
That is a tough one, because things happen in organizations, and it's just the nature of organizations. Like you will feel that there is bias, or someone got something that you felt they may not have deserved, or they got something that you thought may have been intended for you. And I remember a long time ago when I first started working, there was a group of us new people who had just joined, and the manager said to us, you might look around this office and feel that the supervisors or whatever aren't doing anything, or you don't know their purpose or whatever. But he said they pay their dues, and so they get to be, have a nice desk with a nice view and all that kind of stuff. So it's not even gender specific or race specific or nationality or anything like that, particularly with large organizations. Like, just putting in the work and making yourself known, and having someone who speaks up for you or something like that, you get rewarded. And it might not seem fair, but it's sort of like the nature of these particularly large organizations. I would say if you work in an organization that has an HR department, maybe if you feel that there's discrimination, you should go and talk to the HR people and see what it is that they have to say. Many of the large organizations have a process or procedure, right, that you go through if you want to lodge some type of complaint, and they sort of protect you, as much as they can. And really, if you really feel that you are the victim of discrimination and there's no resolution that is pleasing to you, or that is going to work for you, like someone said, maybe that's not the organization for you. Then maybe, it's sad to say, it might be time to find a better organization. But that's a tough question. It really is.
Yeah, I think I agree, Denise. I also think too, it's so difficult calling it out, but you also have to look at it from an opportunity perspective, not necessarily a problem, because it will create an opportunity to fix it, not only for you, but for other individuals who might be feeling the same, or who might be getting treated the same way.
Thank you. So we do have a few more minutes, but what I wanted to invite people, if they want to unmute and ask their question, you are welcome to. That's why we did set it up as a meeting format. So if anybody's the speakers, this is your chance. Okay. So if there aren't any other questions, I will turn it over to Deborah. Oh, you have to unmute. Deborah, you have to unmute. It can't unmute. All right. So I guess at this time, I think we will wrap up. But I want to thank the speakers today for sharing all those insights, sharing your work experience, some of your challenges, some of your successes. It's been a really interesting and very informative webinar. We knew you guys would be all-stars and would have something to share, and we really did hear some really great feedback. So I'll go ahead and wrap up. We do have a part 3 to the series. So December 14th at 2 p.m. We are going to have a part 3, and it's going to be with some leaders. We call it like leaders on the rise. So women who sort of on the earlier side of their career, and just hear what some of their experiences are as women of color leaders in the credit union space. So I'll leave it at that. And thank you. Thank you guys for joining us this afternoon. And we'll make sure you guys get the recording after. Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
You.
Bye.
Bye.
I enjoyed spending time with you. Thank you
Me
to
too.
everyone.
You as well.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Safe travels for those on the road.